Welcome to today's webinar on identity management in the maritime industry. We're just going to give it a few more moments for people to roll in. I see we have quite a lot of people joining us today, so that's always a pleasure. Okay, I want to thank you all for joining us. We have quite a lot of viewers. I see quite a few familiar names with us today, but also quite a few new ones. So it's great you all joined us, and hopefully you leave this session with a few key takeaways, as well as a few fresh perspectives from our side at Dualog. For those of you that don't know, my name is Richard, and I am a customer success manager based in Tromsø in Norway. So with me today, you've probably seen him before, is Mikael Johannesson, and he is our product manager for our mail services, as well as Dualog Identity, which will be a core part of our discussion today. As a guest speaker, we also have Geir Inge Jensen, who is not just a CISO at Dualog, but also a sitting member in the ISO committee for ships and marine technology standardization. So, okay, people are rolling in even more now. So yes, we have quite an exciting discussion ahead of us today. I mean, speaking with people in the industry, we've noticed quite a growth in interest when it comes to identity management. It's become quite quickly central to cyber risk management, as well as daily operations. And as most of your viewers probably know, identity management is not so simple when it comes to the maritime industry and how life is on board, with things like crew rotation, different time zones, shared roles. It's quite difficult to get things sorted in a way things are done on shore. And a lot of the practices that we see today evolved more out of practicality rather than governance. So taking that in mind, we had the following agenda today, where we'll cover everything from how things are today with the reality on board, and moving on to the regulatory framework and how this is affecting shipping companies and how they are navigating these changes. And towards the very end, Mikael will also be showing us how we have tackled this problem and implemented our own solution to tackle this problem statement. And as always, we'll have a Q&A section towards the very end where you can feel free to drop in any questions towards us, and we'll be answering them promptly. Before we get to that, though, just some quick housekeeping rules. If you have any questions during the duration of the webinar, no need to hold off until the very end. Just drop those questions in, and we'll have them all sorted at the end, and we'll get to them. Okay, so if we can get started now, Mikael, and take a step back, and we look at how reality is on board these vessels. So what I commonly see a lot of cases is the use of shared credentials, how onboarding and offboarding is quite a manual process. How typical is this across the industry from those you have spoken to?
Yeah, so what we're seeing on board, I think it's fair to say that nearly every shipping company, it's very, very common to have sort of shared accounts on board the vessels. You'll have like everything is role based in shipping, so you have like the master account, the chief engineer, chief officer, and pretty much every shipping company has a setup where the password is sort of always the same. There is no sort of rotation of the password, and we've also seen like a lot of cases where this has also been actively used in attacks towards shipping companies, because when you have the same password across your ships, or you have an easy to guess password, it's sort of the dream scenario for any attacker. So it's something, as I think it's fair to say that it's a common practice in shipping, but at the same time, I think it's very understandable why it is like that, because as a shipping company, you have 10, 20, or up to hundreds of ships that you need to manage. And very often you have a limited IT department, and it's not that feasible to sort of go into every ship and do a proper password rotation all the time. So you end up with sort of standardized passwords. So I think this is sort of the way it's done on almost all shipping companies. I've seen a few where they have like a good solution in place, but for the majority, it's like that.
I see. I mean, you touched a lot on the cybersecurity side of things, but beyond cybersecurity, are there any operational risks that you have seen that are unique to the shipping industry here?
I mean, if you're talking about operational risks, I would say that the biggest one is this, like the concept of accountability. When you don't really know that it's only the captain that has access to the master's mailbox, you can't really sort of say with confidence that it was the captain who sent that email. So I think this accountability part and the lack of audit trail of who did what when you sort of have these shared accounts across the ships. And we've had cases where we've had sort of a captain that denies sending an email. It wasn't me who sent that email. And in those cases, in one of those cases, we were lucky enough to like do forensic works and figure out that it was actually a completely different IP on board a vessel that had managed to log into the captain's account. And we could sort of prove it wasn't the captain. But you end up in these weird situations where everyone knows the password and you can't really trust that it was that person that did things. And also on the operational side, we're seeing that you have like charterers who are starting to demand that the manager has control over these parts. So there's also that factor in all of it.
Okay. Now, so I see a lot of parallels between how things are on shore, but if I could just summarize, I think this is not just by preventing breaches, but also adding in traceability and accountability to operations. Okay, so now that we're talking on identity management, I have the question, what does this mean in maritime industry? But before that, let's take a step back. When people hear identity management, a lot of acronyms sort of pop up. You have AD, SSO, MFA. If we look at this in a general level, what is identity management and why does this matter?
Yeah, so I guess the sort of solution to all the things I just talked about, all those problems, is the good part is that it's sort of a sole thing in the world. Like in most other industries, they have identity management as the solution to all of this. And as you say, that there's a lot of like terms thrown around here when we talk about identity management. Some will mention like IAM, identity and access management, and single sign-on, and identity providers, and all of these terms. But for identity management, I think it basically boils down to two things that identity management does. It is that to make sure that the right people have access to the right systems. And the second one is to being able to trace who did what. So if I use me as an example, in our company, we have Microsoft as our identity provider. And I reckon most shipping companies also use Microsoft on the office side. And there, when I need access into a system, our IT team gives me access to that system via my Microsoft account. And then they can make sure I'm only allowed to log into the systems I should have access to. And they are able to trace what systems my account has logged into and who has logged into my account to have sort of control over that. So it's sort of a foundation in both the security part of systems and also the accountability part. To make someone accountable, we also have to make sure that it was that person who did the thing. So I think that sort of sums up what identity management is.
Okay, thank you. So if we take a look now at the maritime industry, so how is this different to a static office environment? What are key traits here that make things different and more challenging to the way things operate?
I think in most other industries, there are sort of identity solutions already. I mentioned Microsoft. You have Okta as another provider. These are you pay for them sort of as a per seat license or per user license, and they're quite expensive. Often like I think $8, $10, $12, $15 per person based on how much sort of you want in that solution, and it can go even higher if you want to get up to like enterprise levels. And it's those services that are sort of made for an office environment. So it doesn't take into account all the things that you sort of need to take into account on a ship. So on the ship, you have users that constantly move either at home or they're on board a ship or on board a different ship, or like they roam around the organization basically. And the seafarers in the organizations are very often contract workers and not employees in the organization. These people are sort of going on board with a rank, which is very important because that rank will inherit a role on the ship. So you go on board with the rank of chief officer, and then you have the chief officer's role on the ship, but then you get promoted to captain, and then you inherit the master's responsibilities on the ship, and you need to sort of take all of these things into account. And then you have, of course, the whole satellite internet part of it, which is we're getting a lot more speed and so on with Starlink, OneWeb, and these systems, but it's still a satellite connection that will at times go down, and then you need to sort of make sure this works fully offline as well. In those cases, the ship can't start operating if they're under a bridge, so to speak. So you have all of these parts of it, and that's where we have focused our attention, is to sort of solve those things in our product.
Now it seems like the whole rank and role-based account is a key part that's relevant here. Okay. So next, I want to put the focus on the whole regulatory framework, and I would like to invite Geir Inge to tackle this question for us. So you've been in this field quite a bit, and we've seen recent regulations like the IACS E26, E27, where they have embedded cyber identity management into vessel compliance. And I know there's a few things on your list as well that you're having a look at. So in your perspective, how does identity management fit into this whole regulatory direction that we're seeing more and more?
Well, you can see that there is some major trend that we need to treat the whole shipping industry in the same kind of security as we see on the shore side. And all the regulatory work going on is moving in that direction. And a major part of that is the need for a proper identity management, not only to know who did what, meaning a capable audit system, but also to address the challenge which Mikael mentioned here, the management of a huge amount of seafarers that are on hire for a limited amount of time. And if you look at the revision 3 of the IMO cybersecurity guidelines for cyber risk management, and keep in mind that this is already almost a year old, they are quite specific on the recommendations that they have in there. You need to assign unique credentials for all users, separate users and privileged accounts, and let's not forget deactivate. On focus on the deactivate accounts for departing employees or users. They also mentioned multi-factor authentication, which is particularly important for any computer-based system that can influence the operation of the vessel. And all of this is in no way easy to achieve without a professional identity management system. Now, if you look at what you said, mentioned the E27, the unified requirement from IACS, which I have to remind you that they predate this revision 3 of IMO. They are super specific on technical controls that needs to be in place. The computer-based system shall identify and authenticate all human users. They don't specify unique human users, but you need to identify all human users accessing the system. And not only that, there is a specific requirement that they should provide the capability to support the management of all accounts, including adding, activating, and importantly, disabling and removing the account. That's a lot of manual work unless you have this kind of identity management system in place. And if you look at E26, which looks at the whole ship as a system, not only the individual computers, when boarding, you're supposed to get access to all the ship systems that you are entitled to, not necessarily all the rest of the systems, only those that you need access to. Likewise, when leaving, you're supposed to have that access disabled. So there is a lot of going on working in direction of identity management, which is one major part of which this is the very first criteria that IMO set on the protection of the vessel. You need to have unique credentials for all users. So this is the direction of all the regulatory work is going.
So do you think right now this is sort of an IT best practice? Is it moving towards where there's a governance expectation for this all? How do you see this evolving?
Yeah, it will be an expectation, and we know that as IMO has put so much focus on it, it will it will drop into the ISES rules coming soon, and then all the class rules have to comply with that. And yeah, this is something that it will make the ship more secure, but also it will help make you a lot less manual work if you have some kind of system handling all of this.
Right. Yeah, so it seems like there's a shift now from technical control more to organizational accountability moving forward.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that, Geringe. And now the last question before we move on to the demo is, given all that we've spoken about today, how are shipping companies tackling this and approaching identity management in this day and age?
Yeah, I guess that's for me to answer. So I'm the one who's been working with several shipping companies when we've been sort of creating this product, and I think it's what's been initially driving it is what Geringe talked about, these regulations. Primarily the E27 has sort of been an enabler for getting focus on this in shipping companies. So that's what sort of the front runners have been triggered by. But what we're seeing as well is that it's not just the regulatory part that is driving it. It's other parts as well. So some are sort of finished rolling this out. Some are rolling it out sort of all in one go, getting all their systems integrated, and so that once they roll it out to their users, they're like the whole system is single sign-on, and others are rolling it out one system at a time. So it's like they introduce this new identity, and that's logged into the email, and the next part will be the document management system, and they sort of put on more and more systems until they are complete with it. So it's there's some difference there in how it's approached, and all the approaches are pretty good, I would say.
I see. So you would say it's less of an afterthought these days than it was before, that is more sort of ingrained and embedded within their whole strategic vision and risk strategy.
Yeah, I would say that, and it's like compliance was maybe at least the initial driver, and it's still a very, very important driver, but it's also this whole strategic part, as you mentioned, that as I said earlier, like identity management is sort of the foundation for both the security and the accountability in any IT system. So if you're sitting as an IT person and knowing that you have no identity management solution, you're sort of bound on what you're able to do. Like getting a new system in place is almost impossible because you need thousands of accounts in that system, and you're sitting with people that have access to systems that left years ago, and it all sort of just becomes a bigger and bigger mess. So I think this is also what the industry is seeing, that by implementing identity management, you're sort of solving all of these problems in one go. And it's also a much better user experience for the seafarers. It's not 20 passwords they need to juggle when they go on board the ship. They just have their own password. That's a much better experience.
It seems a lot more efficient. Given that all we've spoken about today, I mean, obviously it's a very complex topic to tackle, but I know you and your team have been working on quite a bit in trying to solve this problem in our new product, Dualog Identity. And I think there's a natural point to skip over to your section of the webinar, Mikael, where we'll be demoing Dualog Identity and showcasing a bit on how this all fits together. But before that, I think we have a poll that will be put up just for all our viewers to chime in and give their take. So it should be popping up on the screen in not too long.
Okay. I guess while that pops up, I'll move on here and look at I added before I sort of show a demo. I saw the list of attendees for the webinar. It's a big mix between like very technical people and non-technical people. So I'll try to keep this on a level that the technical people get a little bit of insight and the non-technical people can still follow. So I won't go too much into detail. But on a higher level, the sort of flow of how this works, if you look on the flow chart I'm showing on the screen here, in the top left, you see that you have multiple ways to get your seafarers into the system. So you can either like manually create them, you can do CSV imports We can integrate with your crewing system. We're already integrating with several and working with others to integrate with more and more. And we also have an API for the ones who want to like programmatically push users to us. Here is where it's important that you automate this system like long term, so that you can automate the user onboarding and especially the user offboarding, as Geringe touched on. That is an integral part of it. So when those users, as you can see on the top left here, move into the Dualog cloud site, they're also, if you want, you can run the identity part on the ship as well. So then it's sent over to the ship side's identity server. So the users live both in our cloud and can live on board your ships. And on the cloud side, you can connect any sort of cloud-based applications. If you have a document system or a training system in the cloud, that would typically use our cloud side identity server. And also the Dualog products that we are running in the cloud, like the Dualog Workspace, which is a coming platform. I'll show you a little sneak peek of that as well in this webinar. And on the ship side, both the Dualog products, like the Dualog Mail and the Dualog Volta, takes advantage of the identity of Dualog Identity. And also third parties on board can hook on to the onboard identity server, which means if all the internet connections go down, everything still works perfectly fine on board because everything happens locally. And for the keen eye, you can see in the bottom right part here as well that it's mentioned Active Directory. And that's one of the systems that we also integrate with to push users to, because we see on a lot of shipping companies, they have like a local Active Directory on the ship with like a master, chief engineer, chief officer, etc. account. That is virtually never sort of rotated passwords on and so on. So with Dualog Identity, for those kind of shipping companies, you will be able to push the users that are currently on the ship into Active Directory and then use to sort of give them the correct access levels. And then they are disabled in Active Directory once they leave the vessel, which is a quite cool feature. And for the demo part, if you look on the yellow parts here, that is what I'm going to show you from the user interface. So I will do a CSV import with a few users to just show how you can populate users in the system. We will use the cloud-based identity server, and we'll look at the third-party application and a Dualog-based application, so the Dualog Workspace in this case. So if I share my screen, let me first, yes, share my screen. So hopefully nothing breaks here, because this is all happening live and everything always breaks in demos. So this is the Dualog portal for existing customers in the audience. You've probably seen this a million times. And for new customers or other companies, this is where you sort of configure everything related to Dualog products. So here I'm logged into Elite Tankers, which is a demo company in here. And in Elite Tankers, if I go to the ship staff page, this is where I handle all my users. So in the ship staff page, I can see all the users in my organization. So you can see here we have quite a few seafarers already in here. So one thing I wanted to show you here is under our settings here, you can see things like how to set the password policy. So you could set a password policy that matches your requirements. You can set up things like if you require multi-factor authentication, which I do absolutely recommend to use. But for the demo, I turned this off so I can more easily create accounts and log into them without setting up multi-factor authentication. And you can enable like self-service options for the seafarers to sort of limit the admin load in case they like forget their passwords or they forget their username and so on. You have some settings to do that. And before I upload the users, I also just wanted to show you how I set up integrations. So there's a lot of things in here that you would also need to set up if you want to take advantage of the full system, like setting up your ships and so on. But I'll skip showing those parts since we don't have unlimited time here. So when I go to the integrations that are in my organization, you can see I've set up a few here already. So if I were to set up a new integration, I would set up an integration. As I mentioned earlier, things can either live in the cloud or on a ship. So if I, for example, select a cloud-based application, you can see we have, for the technical people, we support OpenID and SAML as the two authentication methods. So if I were to set up an OpenID-based application, I would then be able to configure it from here with everything I need to set up. And if I want to sort of limit who is allowed to log into this application from our side, I could set up different kind of settings for that. So I could, for example, say only captains are allowed to log into this system. So one application I've set up is the Maritime document management system, which is an application I vibe coded. So I'll show you that in a second. But first, we need to add our users back in the ship staff page. So I said I would use the CSV import to do this. So let's go and just upload the CSV with some users. You don't have to catch every detail in here, but the gist of it is that I've selected a CSV file with a few users. I click continue in here. And from here, we can see that I've selected two users here. We have Sam Sailing and Joe Dockman. So Sam is, or both of them are second engineers, but Sam is currently on board the MT Elizabeth vessel from today and until the 30th of June, 2027. So he's on board for quite a while there. So when I add these users, don't worry getting as the CISO here. You see the password on the right side. That's just part of the password, no worries. So when I click confirm here, it's now uploading my users, and my users are now in the system. So if I go to my document management system that I set up and select sign in with Dualog in this system. So either I could have the old-fashioned way of logging in with a username or password, but since I've set up an integration with this, I can select sign in with Dualog in it. It will redirect me to the Dualog Identity server. Let me just fetch the password here. And then we wanted to log in with Joe at elitecrew.dualog.net as the username, and I selected the password that I created. And once I've done that, I'm redirected back to that application from the Dualog Identity. And now I'm logged into the system as Joe Dockman, which was the user I just created in the organization. So now I'm given access to the system. So if I were to go back and disable Joe's account, he would lose access to the system. Technically, you have like an introspect API that you could call in your application and make sure it happens immediately. But let's not go too deep into the details in the webinar on this. Another thing Joe could do is, I mentioned the Dualog workspace that we're working on. One thing about this is when we talk about identity management, one thing that often comes up is like identity and access management is another part of the same story. So for identity management, it's about making sure the right people have access to the right systems. But another part is also to make sure that they only have access to the things that they should have access to in those systems. So in this document system, because we know Joe is a second engineer, you could, in the system, give in only access to the things you should have access to in the system. So I'll show you how that could look like in a system that is Dualog workspace that we are currently building. So here I'm now, you saw I just went to workspace.dualog.com and I'm automatically signed in with single sign-on as Joe Dockman in the top right corner here. And here we can see that I'm logged in under the elite tankers. I have some channels here I can view. And I see here that I have no ship assigned yet here. So one thing I could do here is, for example, just for the fun of it, since we also created Sam Sailing, I can look up Sam Sailing here and say, hi, I am your reliever, looking forward to meet on board, because we created those two users. So if I were now to, because Sam Sailing, as you remember, he was on board the MT Elizabeth. So I want to show you what that looks like when we log into that account. So if I log out of this account and then into Sam, and let me find the password for Sam's account. like that, and log into SAM. You see now I'm logged in with SAM sailing here, and all of a sudden SAM has a lot more access in the system. So here we know in the system that he's on board MT Elizabeth, and since the Dualog Identity tells this product that he is on board, he can be given access to the different parts of this vessel. So here we can see the discussions happening on board this vessel. Sam as well, since he's the second engineer, he has access to some role accounts in this system. So also based on the fact that he's the second engineer, he can be given access to parts of a system. So here in the workspace, for example, he's then able to log into a role-based account based on the fact that he has the rank that is allowed to log into that account. And then, of course, we could go and see here that Joe Dockman sent us a message, and we can then start talking to Joe Dockman in the system. So this is how it works with Dualog Identity, that you have control over who logs in where, and you have all this information about those users. So the third-party systems that you're using can use that information to their advantage and give them access to the correct resources based on that. So with Sam here, he has access to the MT Elizabeth part of the workspace, and he can access these role accounts in the systems because we know he's the second engineer on board MT Elizabeth. So that's basically it for the demo part of this. There's a lot more to the system, so if anyone's sort of interested in digging into the details, then I recommend reaching out so we can have a one-to-one discussion on all of these details.
Oh, thanks for that, Mikael. I know it's difficult to keep things short when it's such a complex subject here, but I think you did great. Now I think that wraps up our demo, and I'd like to open up the floor to Q&A. So for any of those that have questions for us, we'll be happy to take a look at them and go through them one by one.
I guess while we wait for that, I just want to point out I'm the only one with Dualog merch on me here, so 1-0 to me.
I'll have it next time.
Rookie mistake.
Okay, so we have a question coming up here. Does the SSO into other systems only work if there's stable internet? Vessels may be on a stretch of ocean with very poor or no connectivity.
Yeah, I can answer that one. So that depends on if it's a cloud-based system, then of course you need at least a little bit of internet access to be able to like reach the authentication server and send this login request back and forth. But if it's an onboard service, then it's about doing that request locally on the ship. So even if the vessel has no internet access, you will still be able to log in. So we're seeing some cases where you have like a training system, for instance, or a document management system that has, very often they have like a cloud module, like a training system. You want the seafarers to do training before they go on board, but there's also a training module on the ship. So in these cases, we're setting up integrations on both the cloud side and the ship side. So the cloud-based application of it will be authenticated in the cloud, and the onboard part will be done fully locally on the ship. And it's still the same user, the same password, and everything that is used on both sides. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, and then just to check, will the meeting recording be shared with participants? Yes, they will be sent out to participants, and will be also hosted online sometime after this webinar. Hi, can we configure identity management system as a radio server and use for authentication?
So the identity server on the ship right now, we've added support for OpenID on the ship side, and on the cloud side, we support SAML and OpenID. But if you sort of have a good use case here, click this personal follow-up button, and we can have a discussion on how it can be solved with how it's set up today, and whether we can sort of expand the functionality in the service to cater for that use case as well.
Okay, and someone here asks whether this SSO could be integrated with existing application. For example, they have their PMS installed on board and want those to be managed via SSO, and whether that is possible.
Yes, absolutely. So that is one of the key parts of Dualog Identity, is that we basically want you to integrate with as many of these systems as possible, and the plant maintenance system is maybe a key system in this, because then you don't just have a role-based login into your plant maintenance system. You have named people logging into the plant maintenance system, so that you can tell that it was this exact person that logged in and did this thing in the PMS. They were the one that said that this part was changed. So that is it's an important part of it, and something that should definitely be integrated.
Okay, can IAM be integrated with other web applications and onboard ERP systems? And what protocol is used for this integration?
Yes, so we've deliberately focused on supporting the open standards when it comes to these integrations. So we don't want you to go to your provider and say, we want you to create this weird custom integration with Dualog that only works towards Dualog. We want you to be able to go to your provider and say, can you please support single sign-on or support having an identity provider in your system? So technically, if you want to sort of note down what protocols we use for the integrations, it's SAML, SAML, so Sierra Alpha Mike Lima, and OpenID are the two they're the two major protocols used for single sign-on, and they're the two we support in our system.
Okay, someone is asking whether there are auditing capabilities that they're available for identities. Will they be able to review who has SSO'd external systems and when?
Yes, so this is a twofold part. One is the identity server in the cloud, and another is on the ship. So on the ship, you can enable auditing of everything happening. So you're able to audit all the authentication requests, like someone logged in with a failed password or correct password, they logged into this application, blah, blah, blah. That also, as a side note, extends to the Dualog email and the whole Dualog user interface on board, so you can see who sent that email, for instance, if you use Dualog Identity with the email system on board, or the Dualog mail system on board. And on the cloud side, we do the same, but right now we don't expose those auditing logs to customers from the cloud side, but it's something we're working on to add on the cloud side as well. So we do log it, we just don't show it to you just yet.
Right.
But on the ship side, you can see it already.
Okay, loving all the questions coming in. Are there any MFA methods available when users signed in?
Yes, so we support 2 or I guess 3 methods right now. So one is SMS, where they use their phone number, and another is WhatsApp for cases where you want them to just use a phone number, because that's like a very easy user experience. You don't need to be like very tech savvy to get a WhatsApp message with a 6-digit code. And WhatsApp works great when you're like at sea and there is no phone coverage. And then the last one we support right now is OTPs or like using an authenticator app, basically, where you have this QR code you scan, and then you have your authenticator app, where you have this rotating key that you put in. So those are the 3 we support right now, and we're also opening to adding more ways going forward to make it as simple as possible. One of the things we're looking at is, of course, like biometrics and so on, which is becoming sort of the new state of the art when it comes to authentication. I see getting and nodding, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to mention. Music to his ears. Okay, may I have the contact details for a technical demo? Yes, all the inquiries that you have, just simply click on the "Would you like a personal follow-up" pop-up that's on the screen here, and that'll ensure that you get a session set up with us after this webinar sometime. And we'll be sure to go through all the documentation that you require, and we'll also assess the feasibility of implementing this for your specific use cases. So happy to take that call with you, and looking forward to it.
There were some more questions in that comment I saw.
Sedition, can you share any supporting documentation to review full feature set and technical feasibility with our existing application vendors? So yes, that will be reviewed with us. And GDPR compliant, yes, that is also a big focus on what we're doing. And I'm sure Mikael can also elaborate more, as well as getting on this topic. I know he's been deep in this in the past year.
I guess on that part, one key part is like a data processing agreement that we set up, and we also, from our side, we focus on only getting sort of the minimum we need to run the service. So by default, we only sort of ask for the sign-on, sign-off dates of the seafarers and the ranks from the crew management system. So we recommend either using our API to push data to us or using the crew management system integration to just fully automate this. And another thing is that we do support custom fields. So if you want to bring in things like their date of birth or their gender or whatever, we do support that, but that's when it becomes sort of a GDPR question. You need to justify, GDPR-wise, you need to justify why you need a third-party system to have access to this information and so on. So that's when it becomes a little bit of GDPR questions, but it's not new territory at all. So yeah, but then just click this follow-up part to discuss this more in detail. So it's not like don't be afraid to click that button. It's like committing to buying this thing. It's more like want to discuss how this all can look like.
Okay, we'll give it a few moments to see if any more questions pop up. No, I think the questions are done for now, but as you all know, we have a personal follow-up pop up on the screen over here. And if you want to discuss any of this in depth together with Mika himself, as well as his team, whether it's something technical, getting started with proof of concept, or just learning more about this whole problem statement and how this can be approached for your shipping company, we're happy to have a discussion with you whenever your schedule opens up for it. So just feel free to click there. And other than that, oh, I see another question has popped in. Let's see. Can identities integration with a local AD on board?
Yeah. So
I'm guessing if they can ask if they integrate with the Active Directory on board.
Yeah, I guess we can end off with that question. It's as I mentioned earlier as well. It's many shipping companies have like a local Active Directory on the ship, where it's like you have the pre-made ranks or the roles on board as accounts. And with this, you are able to sort of get rid of that if you want to. You don't have to, of course, but if you want to, and push personal users into Active Directory. We're also able to push both the username and the password of the user into Active Directory without, like, technically we never store the passwords of the users. Don't worry, we only salt and hash it, but we're able to populate it in transit into Active Directory so that they have single sign-on in Windows as well, which is a quite cool solution. So be happy to go more into detail on that if anyone wants to touch on that part.
Looks like another wave of questions. So another one coming in. Can you support SSO on domain controller?
Yeah, I guess that goes into the same. I guess by domain controller, it's basically Active Directory. It's sort of the same as the last question, but this is with the question is single sign-on. Technically, single sign-on means that you sign in one time and then you signed into all applications. But with this, you of course have to insert your username and password into Windows. But it is single sign-on in the term that you have the same password that you log into Windows with, that you log into your email application then, or your plan maintenance system and so on. But that is if you decide to sort of do the whole Active Directory integration as part of this.
Okay, but then I think that about wraps it up. I would like to thank you, Mikael, and also Geninge for joining me today. And of course, to all our viewers, I see most of you actually stayed across this entire duration of the webinar. So glad that you could join us this session. And yeah, stay in touch with us, follow up with us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you all.
Thank you all.